Birthday cards have never been easier to make. Hi everyone, I'm Yana Smakula. Welcome back to my channel. Today I have a birthday card tutorial for you, and this is seriously the easiest, the quickest, the most doable card I've ever done. So here I have a set of layering stencils. This is called Layering Birthday, and it's a set from Simon Says Stamp designed by Cathy Zielske. Cathy is always brilliant with her designs, and I absolutely love all of the products that she does. This set has 4 layers to help you stencil the happy birthday sentiment in different colors of ink. And the idea is that you use 4 colors of ink, so 1 color for each layer. Of course, you can do a different color for every letter if you want to complicate things. But the way Cathy designed it is that you use a different color for each layer, and you have a bold, colorful statement sentiment on your card. And it's actually pretty big, so it easily takes the center stage of on your project. Now, what I love about this layering stencil set is that it allows you to create birthday cards for anybody. Depending on what color palette you choose, what colors you use, this can be a feminine card, a masculine card. It can be probably even a card for a kid. It's all up to you. Very easy to use. Now here I have my first stencil. I already attached it to a sheet of cardstock, and this is Nina Solar White. I used Spellbinder's Best Ever Craft Tape to tape it in place, and I kind of moved it a little bit off to the side. So my favorite is, this is a half of a letter sheet, and the stencil, the size of the stencil is 6 by 6 inches. But there is an etched line in the stencil that shows the A2 card panel. So if you want to align it on your card, or if you want to see where the boundaries of a background for an A2 card are, you have that built into your stencil. So that's very convenient. I knew that I would be cutting my background. I knew that I would be trimming it. I would only have a panel that I will foam mount onto a card front. So I didn't need to use that, but you do have that option. Now, what I did do is I used a pencil and I marked the corners of the stencil. So I do have just 2 corners of my cardstock panel here. And I also marked the horizontal and like the top edge and the bottom edge of the stencil, just to make it easier for myself to align the next layers. Now I tried stenciling in 2 different ways. So first I wanted to do like solid stenciling, and that's what I was doing on this panel. I didn't quite like it in the end. I actually messed it up. So I tossed it. Another way that I wanted to do this is I wanted to do directional stenciling. And the way I do this is I just start blending, and I only blend from one side. So here I'm coming in from the bottom and I'm extending my color all the way to the top. Well, maybe not all the way, but somewhat to the top of the letters. So I have more color, concentrated color, more saturated color at the bottom of the letters, and then the color just fades almost into white. Not quite into white, but almost into white as I finish my ink blending. And I do like this type of ink blending better. It looks a little bit more artistic, a little bit more clever. And here you can see the comparison, the side by side, with a different type of ink blending. So up to you, whatever type of ink blending you want to do. Like I said, I prefer the directional ink blending because I get a little bit more interest with my ink this way. Now I pulled my DIY Simon Says Stamp color chart. You saw that at the beginning of this video, to pick out the colors that I wanted to use for this project. I wanted to create a masculine birthday card. I don't know about you, and you probably will agree with me. Masculine birthday cards are kind of hard to make, because we always add flowers and we always want to add like pretty embellishments, and that's like not the best thing to do for a guy's birthday card. So when I saw this stencil, I was immediately inspired. I'm like, okay, this is the perfect product to make a birthday card for a guy. And I can make a ton in no time. I didn't make a ton. I just made 1 so far because I have my friend's birthday is coming up, and I needed a birthday card for him. So I used my Simon Says Stamp ink chart to pick the colors, and I picked the Seafoam, Aspen, Egan, and Perfection. But again, like I said, you can pick whatever colors of ink you want. This can be a feminine, a masculine, a kid's card. You can also add little things to the letters. If you want to step this card up, if you have time on your hands, if you want to play with this stencil, you can add things to the letters. Maybe you can add like a party hat, a stamped party hat. Maybe you can add some balloons. You can add some gifts. So lots of things you can do to step it up if you wanted to. But this stencil is fantastic as is because you have that ability to easily stencil the letters in different colors of ink without having to do any masking. That's like the key for me. I don't have to do any masking here. I just add the next layer and I stencil all of the letters in one color. So that's a big plus for me. So you have that ability to easily create a cool and colorful background. Now, the stencil layers align very easily, especially if you add those pencil marks like I did. Of course, you can eyeball the stencil placement. I usually do that. I'm like the eyeball placement kind of person. But recently I've started doing these marks in the corners to help me position the stencils quicker and more precisely. And I kind of love this trick. It's nothing new. It's nothing revolutionary. It's just a basic trick, but it does save you time and it makes things easier. Now, with my ink blending done, I then used a rectangle die from my stash. This is a rectangle die by Spellbinders. You can use your paper trimmer or a die, whatever makes sense for you. And I just used it to cut this panel out using my Platinum 6 die cutting machine. Next, I wanted to show you one thing that you can do with this stencil to really step your background up. It's not going to take a lot of time. It's actually very, very simple and very, very simple trick and very easy to do. And you can all do it. It adds a lot of cool wow to this card. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use just one layer to dry emboss with my stencil. I love dry embossing with stencils. And they create very cool backgrounds. You can stencil and dry emboss, or you can just dry emboss. But here, we're going to add a really cool factor because, we've stenciled through all 4 layers, but we're going to dry emboss just one layer. So only some letters, one color of the letters, are going to be embossed on this background. Now, the embossing is not going to be as deep as when you do dry embossing using the embossing folder or even a 3D embossing folder. Of course, it's going to be subtle, but it's going to be there and it's going to look fantastic. Now, to dry emboss with a stencil, you just need to use your rubber mat. If you have a Spellbinders machine, the rubber mat comes with the machine. If you have a different kind of machine, you'll need to look, you'll still need to get the rubber mat. If your machine does not already come with a rubber mat, I don't know. I've never had a different die cutting machine. I've always had a Spellbinders die cutting machine. I did have a Cuttlebug. Cuttlebug was my very first die cutting machine. So my point is, I don't know if your machine comes with a rubber mat, but you do need a rubber mat to be able to dry emboss with a stencil. And like I said, very easy to do. And as I flip this in the light, you can see that texture. Isn't that cool? I love it. I love that it's selective. I love that it did not emboss the entire background. Had it embossed the entire background, it would not have looked this amazing. It would have just kind of looked, it would look fun, just not as fun as it looks now. Now, I wanted to add a sub-sentiment to my card, and for this, I looked through my stash, and I know that there is one cool sentiment stamp set from Simon. This is the Tiny Words birthday set. This is such an old set, but I love it. I've been using it for years, and I know I will continue to use it for years. So if you don't have this set, make sure you pick it up. So what I did here is I used Simon Says Stamp Anti-Static Powder Tool to treat my black cardstock. I inked up the stamp with clear embossing ink, and I then added the white embossing powder. This is detail white embossing powder, and I heat set it using my heat gun. So all the usual things that you do for heat embossing. I then used a die from my stash, and I cut it out into a small rectangle. And now it's time to assemble our card. Now I created a card base using the Simon Says Stamp Fog cardstock. So this is an A2 side folding card base. I used a layer of fun foam to foam mount the panel, the main ink blended panel, onto my card. And now I'm using the Simon Says Stamp T-square ruler to foam mount that sub-sentiment panel. I want to overlap it. I wanted to go over some of the larger ink blended letters, to have a little bit of an overlap happening here. So I'm going to foam mount that onto my card. And the last thing that I want to do, I do want to add some embellishments. I know that's not, sequins are not really the best thing on a guy's card, but I wanted to add a couple of sequins. So who's going to stop me, right? That's what I wanted to do. So I did that. So I have the these are sequins from Spellbinders. These are their aqua sequins. I really like them because they don't have a hole in them and they're not flat, but they're almost flat. And so I'm using the Barely Arts glue and also the Simon Says Stamp embellishment wand to pick them up, position them on my card, and glue them in place. So that's the birthday card I have for you today. Like I said, super easy to make, super simple. I look forward to using this stencil many, many times again in the future because, let's be honest, it is brilliant, it is easy to use, and it's going to make us some fabulous birthday cards. Thanks for spending time with me today. Love you guys. All of the links are in the video description below, and I'll see you next time.